JT Crowley is Talking Books. On the show, you'll hear from emerging talent and seasoned veterans from around the world.
Hello, and welcome to Talking Books show on Web Talk Radio. I'm JT Crowley, the host, and today I'm inviting Izaera, the author of Naked, Shameless, Human and Free, a simple guide to becoming a human being. I've asked him to come on the show to talk a little bit about himself, but more importantly, talk about the book, which he's written. And it's his first book, everybody. And I hope he's going to write a lot more. We'll ask him later on. So, Izaera, come and join me on the show.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm very good. It's been a very busy day for me. But that's just life.
Right. We're all busy.
We are indeed. So, Izaera, before I open the book, I would like you to tell the audience who you are and why you have written this book.
Okay. Well, I am a resident of Canada. I've been here all my life, and I love the country. But unfortunately, we have some relatively restrictive laws here that don't exactly make me feel too good. I am a human being first and foremost, and I really want to help people understand that they're human beings as well. You see, I feel that a lot of our population walk through life taking their bodies for granted, taking their lives for granted, and just doing whatever comes next. And the purpose of the book is to try and bring people awareness that they are something extraordinary. They're not just a meat bag walking the planet. They are a human being. And being such, we have that in common with everyone. I like the idea of co-creation. I like the idea of working together to create peace and harmony in our world. And I try to describe those concepts in the book. So my personal life, I'm a naturist or a nudist. I belong to a social community of naturists, and I feel that when you learn the naturist philosophy, you become free. You absolutely free yourself of things like trying to put out a perception that you're something that you're not. You get to be authentic. You get to be real. I find that when I get to my trailer park, to my community, I find that I've got this urge to be honest and open and vulnerable as I can possibly be. And all of that is all right in our community. So I'd like to help other people experience that. Now, naturism isn't something for everybody, but the naturism is more of an attitude than it is, being naked all the time. So hopefully that kind of idea comes across in the book. That's what I'm trying to get across anyway.
Okay, let's open your book.
Awesome.
Now, everybody, there are 14 very curious chapters in this book. Now, we're not going to go through all 14 chapters because that's not the whole idea, not the concept behind this podcast. The idea is to give you a sneak preview, a bit of a glimpse as to what is in this book, what you can expect from Izaera. So we've had a discussion beforehand, so we're going to go to the introduction, and then we're going to go to 7 other chapters. So we are going to give you a flavor. Now, if you want to know more, then you can have a look at the written introduction that accompanies this podcast. And there you'll see under social media sites, you'll see the webpage. And that is www.nakedshamelesshumanandfree.com. And there you'll find more about Izaera and more about the book. So you can go and venture there, and you can get the book from that website as well. Now, let's have a look at this book. And I want to go to Izaera to the introduction, and then we'll go to the 7 other chapters. Now, your introduction, Izaera, is quite lengthy, and you talk about an awful lot of things here. So you say we've become human doings, enslaved to money. You say naturism is a philosophy, it's not a dogma. There are rules around naturism. You say you're not a scholar, you're not a learned person, but you're a nudist who uses the term naturist to describe your attitude towards freedom, because that's what it means to you. And I think I'm right in saying that. You see yourself as an educator, a mechanical fixer, an expert of living. And nudism and naturism has always been part of your life for us, going back to your childhood, probably. And so when I looked at this introduction, Izaera, I felt that you've packed an awful lot of punches in this introduction. There's a lot for the reader and for the audience to start to get a grip and understanding as to who you are and why you've written this book. So I think the introduction is you setting your stall out. So my question to you is, why is the introduction so, how shall I say it, packed with interesting information? And do you think that it's a fair reflection on what's coming down the line in the book?
Yes, absolutely, John. I think that I wrote that introduction to try and give people a synopsis of what they'll find in the chapters, just a kind of a brief glimpse to whet their appetite, so to say. They'll read certain things and they might want to skip chapters instead of going to a chapter that was in the introduction. Yes, giving an introduction to who I am, about my life. I think there's some brief stories there about how I've grown up and where I've come from through my life. And I think that people can learn from my experiences. I think that people would resonate. A lot of people, especially my age, would probably resonate with those experiences as well. So I'm hoping to show that I'm also, as I said in our opening statements, is that I'm a human being. I've got flaws. I'm not perfect. I try to be as happy and as joyful in life as I possibly can be, but I still react to things. And that's because of my conditioning in my childhood to react to things that are going right or wrong in my environment, in my circumstances. But yeah, I've learned how to respond to things better. And hopefully in the introduction, that kind of gets the gist across. Instead of being erratic and reacting to what's going on, falling into things like anger or surprise or other things, and falling into the emotional state and staying there, you now get to say, this is interesting. What can I learn? How can I move forward with this? So hopefully the introduction will give some teasers into what's coming up in the book. And yeah, I hope it entices people to dig in and learn something about themselves.
When you look at the introduction, everybody, there are lots of teasers in there. And as Izaera's already said, you don't have to read the chapters in order. You can flip from one chapter to another chapter and then go back. That's the beauty of this book. And not many authors set their books out like this way. So I have to say, Izaera has done a brilliant job here, everybody.
Well, thank you.
Let's move on from the introduction and let's go to chapter 1. And you had this chapter up as What is Nature? Now, for me, nature means different things to different people. But I'm interested to know, what does nature mean to you? And within the contents of what you've written in this book.
Okay. Back in my youth, I was taught that nature was the wild part of our planet, where all the wild things grow and live, and the trees and the birds and bees and whatever you might find out in the wild, we termed as nature. I used to use a term calling it, saying I'm going to commune with nature when I was going to a beach or when I was going camping or something along those lines. But what I've come to realize is that there is a natural order to this universe. Now, is it planned? I can't say. I don't know that. But what I've seen is the beauty of the natural workings of the entire universe and the natural workings of this planet, of which I am a natural human being. I see myself as another species on this planet, our species. We evolved from amoeba and fish over the course of millions of years, and we're now at a place in our evolution where we can actually control our thinking instead of just letting the thoughts go through our heads in a muddled fashion and just, again, dealing with whatever's next. There's a calmness that can come about us if we just sit back, relax, and think about what we're thinking about, feel our emotions, and move forward. So nature to me is the entity that surrounds all of us, the universe, this planet, you and I. It was kind of made evident to me that I can call nature energy. It's the energy that binds us all. Like, I don't know if you remember your grade 9 chemistry, John, but I learned about protons, neutrons, and electrons, and how we can combine those together to build different compounds, and how those protons, neutrons, and electrons create the elements that we do that we make those compounds with. And what I realize is that all of these protons, neutrons, and electrons can be found everywhere. Every planet, every solar system, every galaxy in the universe is containing all of these things. So are every cell of my body. So is every component of the desktop I'm leaning on and the chair that I'm sitting on, the asphalt in the streets, the concrete on the sidewalks, the trees in the forests, the birds, the bees. We're all made up of the same particles, which means that we are all energetic beings. So having that kind of an understanding, we can now say, yes, we are connected not just on an intellectual level, not just on a spiritual level, but on this energetic level as well. I kind of consider that energy the spiritual side of things as well.
Sure. Do you feel closer to nature when you're naked?
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh,
And is that important to you?
I beg your pardon?
And is that important to you?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I have to work. I have to protect my skin with clothes in the job that I do. It's fairly dangerous. I unfortunately live in Canada that has a restrictive law that says I cannot appear naked in view of the public. So therefore, I'm constricted by that law. In England, for a comparison, I understand there are no nudity laws. You could walk down the high street of London and not be accosted by any police, provided you weren't doing anything sexual. That's what they consider lewd behavior, and that's what they would arrest you for. So England is far more freer than Canada is. And yes, like being nude for me is the ultimate sensation of freedom. My body is connected to the air, all of it, every inch of it. My bare feet touch the grass at the Bare Oaks, the naturist park that I belong to. My feet can touch the grass. I go swimming in the pond naked. I am touching nature. I am communing, like literally physically communing with it. And the spiritual side of it, I sit down and I meditate on the grass, and oh my God, my meditations are so much different than what they are when I'm sitting in this chair. It's absolutely liberating. It's a sensation that everybody should try.
Do you know, I thought you were going to come down this line, but that theory, but I thought I'm going to ask him anyway.
Yeah.
So let's move on, everybody, and let's go to chapter 3, which Izaera heads up, the new mind. And this is you exploring the new mind of a newborn child, developing and learning from the environment. It grows up it grows up being influenced by those around them. You hint at a child brought up in a naturist way is more likely to become an adult with a more open mind to life, as opposed to your own childhood, with a set of parents who you loved very, very much, but were heavily influenced with their own upbringing around World War II in Germany and the religious teachings that were prevalent at that time. So they had their own views, which were probably slightly different to yours. So I guess this chapter around the new mind is very important to you. Would you care to expand? Am I right in saying it's important to you?
Oh, you're absolutely correct, John. It is very important to me for two reasons. One is that when you become aware of how you were programmed as a child, and it is a programming, it's not a purposeful programming, but it's just a programming of happenstance. You're born a blank slate. Your mind has not been able to develop anything, right? Your brain synapses are coming together to, first off, understand language, and then understand how to walk and understand the food that you like. You like the food that you like because of what your parents fed you when you were born. So having this programming, I grew up, as you said, my parents came from Germany, war-torn Germany. So things were very disciplinary in my home. My parents raised us through criticism and ridicule to try and guide us down the right path. So as an example, when I came home with the first report card, my mother looked at it and said, "Stephen, you've got to try harder." Right? Instead of saying, "Wow, look at this. This is great." She said, "You've got to try harder. You've got to get into university. This is in kindergarten." And my mom's trying to push me down this path. Instead of allowing me to be who I want to be, instead of trying to figure out what's inside of me, my mom just pushed me down this path. So already at 5 years old, I'm going down a path that does not fit who I am. And I think everybody's experienced this. And I think that becoming aware of the fact that this is what's going on can maybe help you understand why you behave the way you do right now. It did that for me. So yeah, talking about the new mind and trying to help people, I find it kind of, I don't know how to put this. I won't say surprising, I won't say disappointing, but I find it kind of amazing. I guess that's it. I worked with um, troubled youth in a small town that I lived in for a little while, and there were teenage pregnancies there. And they told me the reason why they got pregnant, and it was just a happenstance. Well, we were partying, we got high, we couldn't control ourselves, we had sex, and now we've got a child on the way. And that's kind of an animalistic kind of way of going through life. And I kind of want to implore wannabe parents to really sit back and say, why am I bringing this life into this world? What do we want this life to achieve, right? And it's not like you're going to tell it what to achieve, but you're going to reach to it, to whatever that child is, however it identifies, whatever sex assignment it has, and say, what is it that you want to do? What would be fulfilling for you? And find the people that can help them learn what they need to learn in order to express that. And I think that's the idea of co-creation as well. It's not just something that you do for your children, but it's something that you can do as adults. Sit back and say, what is it that you want to accomplish? How can I help you do that? Right? I think that'll bring a world of peace, quite frankly, these kind of ideas. So talking about the new mind and kind of making people aware that, inadvertently they're programming their kids by raising them in the household that they're being raised in, raising them in the belief system that they have. They're literally programming that child to behave pretty much the same way you do as a parent, right? I know that 10 years ago I was suicidal. I was way overweight, And I was following in my father's footsteps. So his programming really reached down deep inside me. So having able to become aware of this, I've been able to redirect my life 180 degrees. And I've never been fitter in my life, and I've never been happier, quite frankly. So personal development was the key. And I'm just so grateful it came into my life and that I've made the effort to change it and
So
reprogram.
would you say that this change, in your life is really stemming from your ability to, be a naturist, connect with nature more?
Yeah, I think that has a part of it. I think that's more the icing on the cake. The personal development helped me understand why I like being naked in nature with my friends and being in a community of like-minded people. So I think it has helped me become happier and more confident, definitely more confident in myself, because as a child, I had no confidence whatsoever. I was bullied all the time. Um, and now, I like people. I try to think about things. I love everybody and everything. And I trust people until I can't trust them anymore. Or I love people until even if they try to hurt me, or if they do hurt me, I still love them
Hmm.
because I know they don't mean it, or if they do mean it, I can't help that. So having anger in me is something that I can't understand anymore. Having a need to respond to somebody who's hurt me, or to get revenge or something like that, that's nonsense. It's a waste of energy. It's a waste of life. So I try not to do that anymore.
Okay, all right. Let's delve into the book a little bit more here, Izaera.
Okay.
Let's take the audience to chapter 5, Wealth versus Greed.
Ooh,
You
this
start
is
the
my
chapter
favorite.
by saying, I love being a naturist. I think I have a better handle on what it means to be wealthy because of my association with naked people. There is nothing wrong with being wealthy. Wealth isn't necessarily having more money than you need and hoarding it. Wealth is having good health, being happy, and having enough money to be free by meeting one's own basic needs and using what's left to benefit humanity. Where are you taking the reader with this thought process in this chapter here, Izaera?
Well, I think I said in the introduction that I feel that we're enslaved to money. And I feel that there is entities in this world that control money. They're the ones that make the money. They're the ones that direct it to flow to where it's going. Um, I know that there is an infinite amount of money, and I just need to figure out how to tap into that and to use it in a useful way, right? A lot of people believe that they have an infinite amount of time to accumulate a scarce amount of money, a scarce amount of money. That there's a finite amount of money out there, and it's absolutely the opposite. And what I really am disconcerted with is how the greedy people of the world have enough money to do things like move armies and this might sound bad, but buy politicians to change the laws so that they can make more money. Um, and being enslaved to these people is not something that I like the idea of. I like the idea that I'm a human being, that I have the right to be who I want to be, and I don't need to be controlled. I have control of myself. And I think that being wealthy, okay, that's awesome. But how much is enough? I think I write that in that chapter. How much is enough? Has anybody ever sat down? What's the house that I want to live in? How much does that cost? What's the car that I want to drive? How much does that cost? What is the lifestyle I want to have? How much does that cost? And actually come down to a figure that's tangible, that you can say, oh, $10 million is enough, or maybe $100 million. It all depends on your personal likes. But if you love money more than you love people, you're going to run into problems. You've got to love people more than you love money. It's the people that's going to help you make money. And again, the idea of co-creation, which I write in the book about as well, is the idea of helping people become wealthy and you becoming wealthy in the process. And again, how much is enough? Do you need billions of dollars? You know, I know of a particular fellow who's a billionaire or multi-billionaire, has a yacht that he floats around the Mediterranean, and a Bugatti that he lifts off the boat with a crane so he can drive around whatever place he's parked his yacht at. And the people within his company are absolutely miserable. It's a terrible place to work. So I think that this guy loves money more than he loves people. And it's felt right from the top down. The managers are not pleasant people to deal with. They make demands on their employees instead of saying, how can we work together to make this product or this service that we provide flow through the place? There's better ways of making money. And if you're that greedy, I don't know. I feel sorry for you, quite frankly. You know, I once was regaled with a saying that the guy who dies with the most toys wins. And as I matured, I realized it wasn't the guy who dies with the most toys that wins. It's the guy who dies with the most friends that wins. You know, you can have all the wealth in the world, but you may not have any friends to carry on a legacy or to, mourn you when you pass. And yeah, you know, that's something I'd like people to change as well. Let's get together. Let's make this world a beautiful, peaceful place.
Okay. Now, one of your other chapters, which is chapter 8, Izaera, you head up reprogramming. You talk about the darkest recesses of the subconscious, and this is what caught my eye here. You talk about the paragram. You talk about routines and habit. And when I looked at that chapter, I thought, what's Izaera trying to convey to the listener, to the reader, to the audience? What are you trying to get across here in this chapter, this short chapter?
Really trying to bring people's awareness to the paradigm. It's hidden. Most people, I've got a story to regale about that one too, but most people don't go through their lives not understanding that the paradigm is a nest of habits that we accrue during the course of our lives. And a habit is simply an idea or a set of ideas that are grouped together that force us to behave the way that we behave. So I'll give you an example. During COVID, I did the self isolation gig pretty rigorously, and I got so damn lazy that I find it very difficult to go out and socialize right now. Find it very difficult to get on my bike and go for a ride. So coming home at the end of the day, eating my dinner, reading something, writing something, maybe watching some YouTube videos is the way I end my day. And I realized that this is my paradigm. You know, I think about getting on my bike and my body goes, no, you don't want to do that. And it's the paradigm, that set of ideas that I put in there during COVID that stops me from doing that. So now how do you change a habit? Well, you can't change 10 habits at once. We all have an enormous amount of habits. As an example, you get up at the same time in the morning, you hit the snooze button a dozen times or however many times with the same hand. You get out on the same side of the bed. You go to the bathroom in the same way. You do your toilet in there. You grab a cup of coffee in the newspaper or the news feed off your smartphone now. And you start this routine. And the routine was the same thing you did yesterday and the day before and the day before that. So nothing in your life is really changing. And when I came down to that awareness, and that was my mentor, Bob Proctor, I have to mention his name because, most of this stuff that I'm telling you now is what I've learned from him. And when I had that awakening and I saw how my habits were really controlling me, I went and made some changes. And it's through constant spaced repetition of a new idea that will change those paradigms. And I tried to give a concise description of that process in that chapter so that hopefully people can come aware of habits that they don't like doing and figure out how to change them. So when I was a little bit younger, I dated a young girl for I'm going to say 2 or 3 weeks. we didn't click too well, but this was at the very beginning of my personal development time in my life. So this is about 10 years ago, 11 years ago now, and I was very excited about what I was learning, and I was learning about the paradigm, and I said that to her. I said, in your subconscious mind, there's a paradigm, and she got, like, you could see her emotional state change because her physical appearance, her physical actions were like, wait a second, I don't like that word, was the words that she said to me. I don't like that word. And I'm thinking about it, paradigm? Yeah, that word, I don't like it. And I said, well, it's just a word. What's wrong with it? And what I realized long after we broke up is that I brought to the forefront something that likes to reside in the dark recesses of the mind. It doesn't like being called out. And therefore, she got upset and said, I don't like that word. I find that pretty powerful, and, I'm not sure if I regaled that story in the book or not, but you know it now.
So let's go to, some women will say, yeah, we agree here. Some blokes might say we agree here. You have a section or a chapter here called Men Don't Think. Here we find you talking about some of your own personal experiences as a young teenager, still learning how to control your body's reactions when you see an attractive woman. Care to expand on what you're talking about here in this chapter? And again, what's the overriding relevance here in this chapter to the general conception of the book?
Okay.
You, naturists, what some people see naturists in the world as, you're trying to dispel this myth that naturist is not about, how shall I say it, naughty nudity. It's something very, very different, and it's very, very personal to you.
Yes, absolutely. When I tell people that I'm a nudist, I've never had anyone say this to me, but I have this idea that people would think that, well, you're a nudist, that means you're a pervert. That means that you could be a child molester. It could mean that you're doing something that's not socially acceptable. And I've got news for you. In the naturist community, it is non-sexual. We do the exact same things that people who wear clothes do, only we just don't wear clothes. And it allows us to dispel the sexuality of the human form. The human form is a beautiful thing in its utter appearance. It doesn't matter how big or how small. There's no such thing as a perfect body. There's just a huge variety of them. And every body, 8 billion of them, are different. And we have fallen into this trap of doing comparisons. And you think about, when I talk about men don't think, I'm talking about the bro code. You've got to be macho. You can't show your emotions. You've got to, keep your clothes on so that people don't make fun of you, this, that, the other thing. That's just totally going away from being a natural human being. And these are human constructs. These are human thought processes that bring this to the forefront. And when I say that men don't think, I mean that they're not consciously aware of what they're thinking. They say things, they do things, they get into physical fights because somebody said something that they took offense to. All of this nonsense is because their minds are filled with mental activity, but total unawareness or non-awareness of what's going on, totally unaware of what they're thinking. And I can attest to this because this is how I was right up until I was 50 years old. My mind was a mash of mental activity, usually negative thoughts. That's why I was suicidal. trying to be macho, trying to be somebody I'm not, trying to be the tough guy at work, trying to be um, more macho around women, right? Which didn't work very well, by the way. And when I had my awakening and I started to realize how I was behaving, I said, I've got to pay more attention to what's going on. Now, we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. There's no way I can keep track of that. Not at all. It's impossible. So what I keep track of is my emotional state. If I'm feeling good and I'm happy, I'm just glad that I'm feeling good and happy. But if I'm feeling angry or depressed or upset about something, I kind of sit back and say, wait a second, what's going on here, Steve? What's controlling your emotional state right now? Because it's not you, right? And this is why I say men don't think. Now,
Okay. Let's move on.
Okay.
Because I want to go to this chapter because this is the nuts and bolts, I think. Chapter 11. You head up. Sex in the Naturist World. You have some very interesting thoughts, which I thought you have very carefully addressed. It's interesting to hear that there are rules in this world of yours, particularly at your park, where open sexual activity is strictly prohibited. I think the general public has a perceived view of naturists walking around in the nude. But this book that you've written, I think this is you trying to dispel this myth and to really focus on that nudity is part of your naturist way of life, and that you have to respect the rules of the naturist world, and you also have to respect other people's sexuality. I think I'm right in what I'm saying here, and this is what you're talking about in this chapter.
Yep, you're right on the mark, John. In our community up at Bear Oaks, there's everybody there. There's gay people, there's lesbian people, there's transgendered people, there's people of color, there's people of various religions. It all seems to me that when you shed your clothes, you shed the pretenses that you express by wearing certain types of uniforms or clothes. We just accept each other. We respect each other. That's the other thing, right? We all have differing viewpoints. I've gotten into some very heated discussions with people, but we always walk away friends, right? Sometimes we just don't agree on things, and we have this, I don't know, it's nothing that's written down. We just agree to disagree and go about our business. And when we get back together, we can say, hey, I thought about what you were saying, and hey, maybe I should change my mind about that. Or I still stand by what I'm saying, and have a polite discussion about this again. Never have I seen naked people fighting, like physically fighting. Heated arguments, definitely, right? They happen, but never has the constabulary been brought to the park to break up a fight. So dispelling the idea that we're all walking around having sex and what have you is very important to me. No, we're just a community of regular human beings living life as naturally as we possibly can, and co-creating this beautiful environment so that everybody has freedom, where children are safe, where young adults are safe, where everybody has a safe and happy environment where we can coexist happily together. So, having said that, yeah, you know what? There are as big a rainbow of sexual orientations and sexual activity, and et cetera, that would happen at our park, but it all happens behind closed doors. And it's nobody's business but that of the person engaging in that activity. There's it's like we are in control of our sexuality. We don't see the human form as something sexual. It's something beautiful. We get involved in sexual activity. That's when we get aroused. That's when we work together, but we do that behind closed doors. That to me just makes common sense. That to me is appropriately behaving at a time where it's appropriate to do that.
Yeah.
I can put that in contrast to there are sex clubs all over the world. We have several here in Toronto. And in those clubs, you can do whatever the hell you want. It's a free for all. Well, free for all, there's rules, boundaries, and limitations in those clubs as well. But, for the most part, whatever sexual fantasy or whatever sexual thing that you want to get involved with, it's allowable there. Now, this is a venue where that's acceptable behavior. Whereas at Bear Oaks or anywhere else out in public, that's not acceptable behavior. To me, that's just common sense. And I really like the fact that I can be free and natural in a non-sexual place. And, there's no sexual tension there whatsoever. It's awesome. You take people in, they're naked, you see their bodies, you take them in, you make your judgments, you keep them to yourself, and then you look these people in the eye. You meet the person. You know what? We don't look at each other's bodies. We don't stare at each other. We look each other in the eye when we're conversing. And it's a real connection that we're making there. Whereas in the textile world, you might be speaking to somebody, but your peripheral vision is engaged in this
Somewhere else.
perhaps yes, exactly.
Somewhere
And
else.
sexual fantasies going off in the brain. So this is why I love naturism. It totally relieves that tension. It's amazing.
And finally, Izaera, enough already. Chapter 13, the penultimate chapter, you say. I hope I've opened your eyes to something, and I hope I've inspired you to study yourself. If you can understand why you behave how you do, and if you can understand that you can indeed morph into the person you may want to be, clearly naturism is for you. And I've done my job by what I've said in this book. So this is, this chapter and, the whole of the book as well. Do you think you've done enough to change the general public's perception, the notion of what a naturist is? Not just, naughty, sexy, nudie people, there for a laugh and not prancing around. Do you think this book gives naturism a different aspect?
I certainly do hope so. The reason that I called it enough already is because if you made it through this book this far, you've done very well. And I thank them. I thank my readers for getting this far, and just try to recap what was in the book, and hopefully dispelling the idea of or the sexual part of being naked as being just natural. Like, you get home at the end of the day, you shed your clothes, your body's going to go, oh. And I'll tell you what, any woman that I've ever spoken with says she gets home, the first thing that happens is that their bra hits the floor, right? Because they're tired of wearing that sucker. And I don't blame you. You should go braless all the time, right? And it's unfortunate that men don't think, because they see a bare nipple poking through a blouse and they lose their minds, right? So I understand why women wear them, and I feel sorry that we have to go that way. But yeah, so I hope that this interview also kind of dispels this idea of sexual behavior at a naturist park, or there's a World Naked Bike Ride coming up on June 8th here in Toronto, and I'm going to participate in that because there's a bunch of reasons. One, I want to desexualize the human body. I want to help people find more freedom. I want to stop riding my car or driving my car wherever I go. Get people to understand that riding a bike is a lot more healthier than sitting in a car to go around to the corner store. What bothers me now is we have these electric bikes and these electric scooters. Nobody's getting any exercise anymore. And there's a book I read, and I might as well plug it. It's called The Primal Blueprint by Mark Sisson. And he describes how we were 10,000 years ago. We were walking everywhere we went. We were foraging for food. We were finding good, nutritious stuff. We weren't, sitting on a log all day long. We were really working for our survival. And we don't do that anymore. Nowadays, we push a mouse around the desk. And this was me 10 years ago. I was in an engineering job. I'm pushing a mouse around the desk. I'm getting bored with what I'm doing. I'm surfing YouTube videos or what do they call it? Social media, and not being productive, right? And I'm getting fat. I'm lazy. I'm not socializing with anybody. Man, my heart was ready to explode. And I was definitely running into depression. And, coming out of that, having my awakening, working to really appreciate the fact that this body gives me life, that this body holds my consciousness. I consider the consciousness the spirit that resides within me, the guy that's making the thoughts, the energy that's making the thoughts. So, yeah. And
I have a theory: more cycling and less statins, and we'll move on.
yeah. I hear
more
you.
cycling and less statins.
Yes,
So,
I agree with you.
Do you intend to write any more books?
I am working on my second one, and hopefully expanding a little bit more. I know that this book was short, but I kind of tried to do it that way so that I could keep things concise and real, not really stuffing it full. I don't know if you've ever read Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich.
No, I haven't.
It has 300 pages of amazing material. It was written back in 1937, and that material is as relevant today as it was back then. If you switch the characters and the stories that he puts into this book with the contemporary people, it still matches. Like, he wrote something that is absolutely timeless. Bob Proctor read this book. He considered his Bible, and I read it not as often as I should, or as I could. I shouldn't say should, but as I could. But when I do, I always get a new idea or some kind of a fascinating twist on things.
So we can expect a new book out soon.
Yes.
Who would you like to see? Who would you like to see reading your book?
Anybody.
Where can they get your book?
How do they get the book? Yes. Well, you can visit the website, www.nakedshamelesshumanandfree.com. You can go to Balboa Press. You can find it on Amazon. There's 3 different variations, and an audiobook is on its way. There's hardcover, softcover, and ebook as well. So they're relatively inexpensive. It's $16.99 US for the soft cover, $34.95 for the hardcover, and I think $3 or $4 US for the ebook. So all kinds of.
I just have to say, Izaera, it's been a great privilege chatting to you about to learn a little about yourself and your book. I've certainly found it fascinating, and as I say, everybody, go and have a look. Naturism isn't about nudity. It's about a way of life. That's what Izaera is trying to get across to you here. It's not naughty, sexy pranks. It's about a way of life with respect to other people. So Izaera, thank you very much for coming on the show.
I'm blessed. I thank you for taking the time to interview me, John. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm JT Crowley. Thanks for listening, wherever in the world. Until next time, stay safe.